How's it going, everyone? Indy Sean 45 coming at you. So, as we count down the days to the Camping World Pineapple Bowl, yes, you all heard that correctly. I know that's not the official name for this bowl game, but that's what I'm going to call it. You see, I think the TV show Coach was onto something back in the day. You see, the Pineapple Bowl was the name of one of the fictional bowl games in that show. And to be honest with you guys, I'm surprised that nobody in real life has actually used that name for a bowl game. I mean, especially this bowl game that Notre Dame and Iowa State are going to be playing in. I mean, it's down in Orlando, Florida. It's a warm, tropical environment. I mean, hey, we already have the Orange Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Citrus Bowl. Why not use the Pineapple Bowl? I mean, some of you are probably laughing your asses off just hearing me talk about this, but it makes perfect sense for that game. It also adds some pride, some dignity, and some tradition. You know, pineapple, that name makes sense for, it makes sense for what we think of when we think of college football bowl games. You know, rose, sugar, orange, fiesta. Pineapple fits right in with that. You know, gator, citrus, and so on. It makes perfect sense. Now, that's actually what this video is going to be about, guys. Now, you guys heard me say last week in the video that I did for the announcement of the Camping World Pineapple Bowl between Notre Dame and Iowa State, but I wanted to go a little more in depth on that. But first, let me backtrack a little bit. A lot of these minor bowl games, not all of them. I mean, some of them do have it right with the process and like the names and matchups and so on. But there's a lot of them. And let's just face it, with a lot of these lower tier bowl games, the only ones who have interest in it are the fans of the two teams that are playing in it. There's not a lot of extra interest garnered with these games. Now, why is that? I mean, aside from the obvious, aside from the fact that it's not the NY6 or the playoffs or the big stage. But my opinion, I think it's because of the fact that some of these minor tier bowl games, they're too corporate. They're way too corporate. They lack dignity, they lack pride, and they really lack tradition. And basically what I'm getting at, guys, is this. The bowl games that have just the sponsor in the name and the bowl game not having an actual name for itself, just the corporation is boring. Just the sponsor is boring. So people are going to think that they're going to think, oh, just a big-ass billboard in the middle of a football field. And that's all that these two teams are playing for is just the corporation, the sponsor. I can understand that. Just the corporation is boring. And what I'm getting at is this, guys. Like I said, the bowl game itself should have its own name. Now, don't get me wrong. I am perfectly fine with the sponsor staying in the title. But to have just the sponsor, no, it's wrong. So no wonder that, there's not extra interest in these games. But also, I think even for the minor bowl games, I think it's important to have some pride and some dignity and some tradition in them. No, they're not going to match up to the NY6, of course not. But they could still have that feel of a decent game, of a big game, and maybe not an important game, but the two programs that are playing in these small bowl games, they should feel like that they're playing on a decent stage and given that respect. Because hey, it's the team's last game of the season, and obviously for the seniors, it's their last game with their respected programs. So all these games, even the small bowl games, they need to have that pride and dignity there. And I don't see why these small bowl games, when they're being named, can't have that. So in this video, I've put together a little list of, changes that I think that could be made and give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. So there were six minor bowl games that I took, and these are really the only ones that kind of have it screwed up. But again, I'm fine with the sponsor staying in. Just the bowl game itself has to have a name for it. So, the top of the list here, we'll start with the Lending Tree Bowl. Now that's down in Mobile, Alabama. Well, back in the day, it used to be called the Alabama Bowl, or the Mobile, Alabama Bowl. Well, it should be called the Lending Tree Alabama Bowl. Go with that. Has a nice ring to it. Again, the sponsorship is there, but so is the dignity, so is the pride, so is the tradition. The Belk Bowl. All right, it's in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think it used to be called, the Queen City Bowl back in the day? Well, this is what I think it should be called. The Belk Carolinas Bowl. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, Sean, you're making it way too easy. Well, it honestly is that easy. But you call it, in this one, the Carolinas Bowl, they have an all-star game for, a high school all-star game for the Carolinas. Why not name a bowl game after it? It makes sense. Another one, the Red Box Bowl. I think back in the day it used to be the San Francisco Bowl because that's where it's played at, or the Levi Stadium now. But I think that could be this, the Red Box Golden Gate Bowl. I mean, it makes sense for the location, has a nice ring to it, has some tradition, a little bit of pride and dignity added onto it. The Cheez-It Bowl. Very simple. Used to be called the Cactus Bowl. Should be known as the Cheez-It Cactus Bowl, or Cheez-It Presents the Cactus Bowl. Take your pick on however you want to name it. And obviously the Camping World Bowl, I just covered that. Should be called the Camping World Pineapple Bowl. And then the Quick Lane Bowl. And this is one that they never should have messed with. Used to be the Motor City Bowl. It's in Detroit, so just leave it that. The Quick Lane Motor City Bowl. And that's why I think it's important that these bowl games have their own name. Because I think it was Dominic, I think it was you who pointed this out. Sponsorships, as we know, change all the time. Well, that's fine. If the sponsorship changes, that's fine, but leave the names. Leave the names with the bowl games. So do you guys see where I'm going with this? The sponsor helping, that's fine, because somebody has to pay the money, right? But the bowl game, in these examples, they still have their own identity. There's some pride, there's some dignity, there's some tradition there. So yeah. Now for the fun part, guys. I'm going to go over a few ideas for some bowl games that I have. And this first one here, I can't take all the credit for. Dwayne Roll Tide Roll came up. We came up with the same idea for the name, but just different locations. So what I'm going to do with these ideas that I have, there's the potential sponsor, the name of the bowl game, the location, and we'll have some fun and go with conference tie-ins. But honestly, I think all these games should be at-large versus at-large. But first one I have is this. The sponsor, Under Armour. The bowl name, the Shamrock Bowl. And play it at Notre Dame Stadium. And for the tie-ins, have it be ACC, which makes sense since, Notre Dame has the contract with them. Under Armour makes sense because they now sponsor Notre Dame, the apparel. And the Shamrock Bowl, I mean, come on, that's a given. But for the conference tie-ins, I think that one should be ACC versus at-large. So, has a nice ring to it. The Under Armour Shamrock Bowl from Notre Dame Stadium. The next one, this is one I thought was pretty cool. The sponsor, have it be Heinz. You play it in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field, and you call it the Steel City Bowl. So the Heinz Steel City Bowl. And that one for conference affiliation or conference tie-ins was kind of tough. But I thought for that one, and I try to base it off region here to some degree, I guess, but I said Big Ten versus the American. The next one, sponsor, Pepsi. You play this one at Wrigley Field and call it the Ivy Bowl. So the Pepsi Ivy Bowl. And the conference affiliation, or the conference tie-in I have for that, Big Ten versus the Big 12. And last but not least, and this is another one from the TV show Coach, play it in Washington, D.C. at FedEx Field and call it the FedEx Patriot Bowl. Now, for the tie-ins for that, if you want to go by strictly just the name of the Patriot Bowl, then it should be, I guess you could have it be Conference USA versus the American. And I know, some of you are thinking, Sean, that's nuts, because we got to think of matchups here. But that one I really think truly should be an at-large versus at-large, because, Patriot Bowl means the whole country. So yeah. So yeah, guys, those are some ideas that I had for some bowl games, and the changes that I think that should be made to some of the current existing minor bowl games out there. And like I said, some minor bowl games have it right, like the Citrus Bowl, the Gator Bowl, the Holiday Bowl, and so on. But I just think that, again, with these minor bowl games, even though they're not huge, there should be some dignity, some pride, and some tradition there, and not just corporate sponsorship. Because like I said enough times already, just the corporate sponsorship alone is boring. There needs to be a balance. Okay, the teams that play in these small games, they need to be playing for some kind of pride and given a decent stage to play on. And again, I'm not saying that these changes or the proposed bowl ideas would necessarily bring extra interest, but I think it does make things interesting. Because I think tradition is very important, and there needs to be that pride and that dignity there. Because let's face it, I mean, on the big only 12 teams can play on the big stage. I mean, so the teams that don't make it, you got to give them something important to play for, or like I said, at the very least, a decent and respectable stage. Something to end a nice stage to end their season on. So yeah, guys, that's all I have for you in this video. Any of your thoughts and opinions on some of these names, or some of your own ideas on bowl ideas, conference tie-ins, or whatever, give me your thoughts and ideas in the comment section below. I'd love to hear them. I've seen some good ones when I discussed this last week. So yeah, I just wanted to go a little more in depth on that, and have some fun, and again, just stress the importance of dignity, respect, tradition, and some pride on that. So yeah, guys, until the next video, whenever that may be, this is ND Sean 45 signing off. God bless, and go Irish!